I'm Reverend Maginley. I'm the chaplain for the cancer program at the hospital. I cover mainly hematology and the outpatient clinics, so medical day unit, 11th floor chemo unit, and the Nova Scotia Cancer Center. That's here at the Victoria General Hospital. I'm a Lutheran minister. I had a parish for 10 years and I've been here for 10 years. But currently I don't have a parish. I'm exclusively for cancer care. My job is to assist people in the experience, helping them connect to their deepest truth, their inner strength and wisdom, and to get through the whole journey, whatever the outcome may be. I'm also a cancer survivor. I've had a rare form of cancer called pheochromocytoma. Actually, it's called non-chromatin ganglioma pheochromocytoma. Why don't you say that with me? It's usually not a malignant type, but mine is malignant, and I've had it 4 times. And remission now for a length of time, and test every year. So I can appreciate the experience of cancer from both ends of the bed. And I'm here tonight to talk about spirituality in cancer, which is a massive topic that is very difficult to get a handle on. Spirituality is unique for each person, and what it means is something larger than the poverty of our language is usually able to grasp. I've come to an understanding that spirituality, and this will sound a bit large, spirituality is the immanent and transcendent sense of the numinous that is privately experienced and corporately expressed in every aspect of our humanity. If I can break that down for you, it's an immanent, which means an internal, and a transcendent, something much greater than you. It's a sense of the numinous, Latin word that means mystery, but also invokes a sense of awe, wonder, and a sense of connection that goes beyond words, something greater. That is privately experienced. It's always privately experienced within you. It's always this sense of connection and awareness that you encounter and that grasps you in the moments that you need it. It's privately experienced, but it's corporately expressed. There's no such thing as private spirituality. It is manifest in everything we say and think and do and feel, which is why I say it is revealed in every aspect of our humanity, which means that everybody is spiritual. Some people express that through religious practice, but everybody is spiritual, as much as you are physical. But not everybody, in fact, few people these days in our modern culture are aware of how they are spiritual, or can language that in a way that gives meaning and depth to it. Cancer puts you on the fast track, the fast course towards spirituality. You are confronted with your mortality, especially with pancreatic cancer, one of the most severe. You are encountered with your limitations. Your hoped-for future is stripped away from you. You wrestle with your past. You ask those fundamental questions of our identity. What has my life come to? Is it worth it? Can I continue? If I can't, how will I die? How will I suffer? More than anything, it's what is this going to do to my family? People, from the moment they're diagnosed, are not so concerned about their own death as losing their loved ones and the price on that. That's the biggest cost. And that points to the wisdom that love and relationships are deeply spiritual and the most important thing in your life. You don't need to be a religious person, to go to church, to have an idea of who or what God is. All you really need is to know love in your life, the belonging relationship. And that is the foundation of your identity as a spiritual being. Beyond that, the journey takes you into your relationship and your identity in connection to God, the mystery. We're handing out some Kleenex. And while spirituality in the battle against cancer is about connecting to your inner strength and your beauty and the gift of life, it is also something that leads you to encounter the afterlife, what lies beyond. And could death actually be a safe experience despite its physical trauma? Those are massive questions. I'm grateful for the hospital that honors this aspect of our humanity, and I'm privileged to function as a staff chaplain, not representing any faith. In fact, I'm trained to care for people from Buddhist, Muslim, and Hindu, and Christian traditions, and no traditions. So that provides a foundation of what we're talking about tonight. It's very big. With that, I'll just add something that Thomas Aquinas said, or it was St. Augustine. St. Augustine said, always share the gospel or the good news of love and hope, but only as a very last resort use words. Ultimately, the best form of spiritual practice is compassionate presence. I usually say as little as possible in my encounter with a patient, and I try to be fully and compassionately present with them. And by embodying that full and compassionate presence, it helps them become fully compassionately present with themselves, with everything that is within them. Because this is going to run you up against the places that scare you, the things that terrify you. And your instinct, your defense mechanisms, will make you move away from those feelings. Protect yourself from them. If you can instead be deeply and compassionately present with those difficult feelings, then your relationship to those feelings will shift, and they will no longer have control over you, but they will be part of your humanity and lead you into a deeper authenticity. In the Buddhist tradition, this is called becoming a bodhicitta warrior, a warrior of compassion. And we practice that first with ourselves. It's a very difficult task, because no one will be harder on you than you. This is opening up to your vulnerability, to your incompleteness, to the inadequacies and the mess of life, and being able to sit with it and say, yes, this is what it is, and be compassionate with it. Otherwise, it'll be the fight or flight response. You will fly from it, which means you will repress the difficult feelings and emotions and the realities. But whatever you repress, you will project. You will project onto your relationships. You will project it through anxiety, frustration, tears, comments, and impatience. It's going to be projected out. But if you don't repress it, but instead sit with it and observe it and be aware of it, then it'll just be there, and it will change. The circumstance won't change, but how you're present with your own life will change. That's part of the journey, part of the path. So there's an introduction into the interesting work I'm involved with. What I'd like to learn about is your journey. So we've shared a little bit so far. I'd like to learn, are you here because of a loved one, or are you dealing with pancreatic cancer? And I'd like to just learn about what do you think of about your spirituality What does it do for you if it does anything at all at this point? So start right here. So you just mentioned how your faith has been a foundational source of strength for you. But in the face of cancer and multiple issues of suffering, you can't help but question, is God really good? Does God really care? Is there a purpose in this? And it's a common expression that we hear, God won't give you more than you can handle. My response is always, I wish God wouldn't trust me so much. Is there meaning in suffering? Is there a purpose in our journey? Can any good come from this? Those are the big questions that you've named. And let nobody give you an answer to them. You have to come to that yourself. Thank you. It helps me learn about you. So as you've just shared that difficult journey, a lot of details, very difficult to deal with the slow pace of medical action at times. And you can feel so helpless in the face of that when you just want any action to take place. That sense of powerlessness, compounded with the fear and the fatigue, is what causes most people to become infuriated with the system and want to do such things as, well, I'll fly to the States, I'll fly to Europe, I'll do whatever it takes. Powerlessness. As we're talking about that, we're feeling in the room the weight and the power of the emotion, anticipatory grief, frustration. So what I'd like to do right now is pause and practice. So all I want to do is help us shift for a moment our connection to our own feelings so that we can stay with them. I don't want to make you feel better. I want to help you feel strong in the face of what you have. So all you do is use your breath. Close your eyes. I'm going to do an exercise. Close your eyes. And you feel your body in the chair. If you're lying down or sitting, just feel the weight of your body. And breathe. Now, as you breathe, I don't want you to breathe deeply. I just want you to be aware of your breath. Feel your breath going in and be aware of how deep it goes or how shallow. Be aware of the sensation of it flowing in through your nostrils. Be aware of the trembling or tightness within your body as you breathe. And let it be that way. Listen. Listen to the wisdom of what your body is saying. It may be saying, I'm scared. You can say back to your body, yes, I understand. Now, let your diaphragm sink down a bit lower as you draw the breath in down deeper. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. As you breathe out, imagine not only letting go, but moving deeper. Let your thoughts flow to whatever they desire to. Do not stop them. As you sit back and watch your thoughts flow. Observe what it is to be fragile and human in this moment. We are showing up for ourselves. If you find that you are trying to instinctively move away from your difficult feeling, or to judge it, or to calm down, I'd like you to be aware of that, but don't stop it. Step back and embrace what is here. Compassion. Now I'd like you to listen to all the sounds in the room. Air conditioning. There's a little rattle coming from the radiator. Let's listen to that. Can you sense the pulsing of the building? Quietly, the traffic in the distance. Okay. Now open your eyes. Does it feel a little different now compared to as we were talking before? All those feelings will still be there, but their grip on you will be different. Or they won't. It's not something that just comes like that. So often people pray for God's strength. God, do something. Why aren't you doing anything? All we get back is silence. And it's infuriating. But our frustration reflects our inability to sit with compassion in the silence. When we move to the deepest places of silence, we encounter something amazing and startling and difficult. That's why we don't go there. That's why we fill our days with noise, or our thoughts with agendas and ideas, because we're not comfortable sitting with what is. Does anyone else like to share your experience or where you're at? Cancer is indiscriminate. It doesn't care if you are brilliant or if you're old or young. It doesn't care if you're gifted, wealthy or poor. It's just not fair. And there's no point trying to make it fair through what has been described as an insidious theodicy. A theodicy is the urge to defend God's goodness. And that's where we get some statements that are striving and struggling to be reassuring, but may ultimately serve no purpose. These can be spiritual cliches. God only takes the best. When your number's up, it's up. God has a purpose in this. You can think of several that people may offer. When you say that from your suffering, it's an authentic and difficult wrestling with God. When someone else says that, to try to extend comfort, it can end up being oppressive and even a slap in the face. They're trying hard to give hope, but they're wrestling with their own limitations in faith. Why do you get cancer? The reality has been shown that cancer is a modern disease. It was practically non-existent before the Industrial Revolution. We did this. We created it. Cancer is regional, specific to particular areas of the world. The study demonstrated that breast cancer, very low occurrence in Chinese people. Once they immigrate to North America, within 2 generations, they're at the same rate as we are. Colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, all are results of our industrial society. It's the price we pay for civilization. So that's the big picture. But what about the individual? What is the meaning that comes from suffering and even from death? Well, it's naturally going to amplify the gift of life. It's naturally going to result in development of character and strength and perspective that wouldn't be there if it were not for being confronted with your mortality. And this is part of spiritual growth and evolution of the individual. And on a global scale, even the Canadian Cancer Society is a result of that response of compassion to the face of despair, that desire to make a difference. And that is part of what impels us as a species to a higher state of evolutionary development as spiritual beings. It's nothing in that perspective is in vain. Any act of compassion and courage and dignity and beauty and love in the face of cancer affects all of us and brings us all further along towards that place where we are able to be fully and compassionately present in the face of death, suffering, and not be defined by it, and to be stronger than it. This is a difficult perspective because when we think of the cure for cancer, will there be a cure for cancer? Ultimately, not until we change all of civilization. Will there be more effective responses to cancer? Guaranteed. Individualized genetic therapy is coming down the pipe, refined chemotherapies and treatments, something that the previous generation couldn't even conceive of. In fact, there is great hope. At the current rate of change in the world culture, in the next 10 years, we will see 100 years of development in technological advances. That is staggering. Within 10 years. Think of what has happened in the past 100 years. That's also incredibly frustrating because you may have lost a loved one or you may be a person with cancer just on the cusp of those developments, but not able to make it in time. But the next generation will have much greater hope. This rate of change also means in the next 100 years, there will be 20,000 years of technological advancements. So the world that our children and our grandchildren are going to live in will be unrecognizable to us. And that applies to medical care and treatment as well. One of the exciting areas is there is a merger of spirituality and science that is incredibly exciting. Understanding such things as the spiritual anatomy, the impact of hope and prayer upon coping with cancer and side effects and outcomes, the power of the mind and the body, and the connection amongst everybody with each other. If I could just share a little story about some of those studies. Prayer. Everybody prays. No atheist in a foxhole, they say. Well, the studies are really fascinating. There's thousands of them now that have been done on prayer. Does it make a difference? It does. I like the studies of cancer cells in vitro. So we have a petri dish with cancer cells in them. And one group of these dishes is prayed for by people at a distance, and another group is not prayed for, so it's ignored. And what happens? The cells, cancer cells in the dish that are prayed for, die at an accelerated rate. This study, there was a study done on calcification and mineralization in bones. So they took bone cancer samples, and they had a person praying close to these cells, and the other cells were not treated. And those cells treated, the cancer died more rapidly, and the effect of the growth and mineralization and diverse nature of the calcification along the bones increased exponentially, while those untreated just behave normally. Something happens energetically, rippling out from us whenever we function or have the posture of compassion and love with determination and connection. This also means that there's no such thing as a private thought. That can be terrifying. But every thought and every feeling you have ripples out from you and is part of the collective environment. This is part of your spirituality. It also means that in the face of death, love is stronger. Nothing can separate you from your loved ones. Your relationship with them will continue at a very different level, not the physical level, but at a different frequency. You're not able to see them, but perhaps you will be able to sense them, because consciousness continues. But let me talk about death then. Everybody thinks about it from the moment of diagnosis. Every loss in our life is a rehearsal for death. From the moment your ice cream fell off your ice cream cone when you were a child and you grieve that loss, to perhaps a pet or an animal dying, and a relative. Losses in your life, relationships, jobs. It's all a rehearsal for that final transformation. I've had the privilege of incredible experiences that I've been able to witness at the moment of death. And I've talked with many people who've returned and told those stories that you may have heard about, of being greeted by their loved ones, of seeing a great light moving through a tunnel, experiencing love and awareness and presence that they've always longed for. And then the depression and the frustration of returning to this world, and the density of the body as they slam back into this reality and have to move through reality, this world like molasses. Everyone who returns is sad. They grieve it. They wish they could go back. But then they end up trusting, well, there's a reason I'm here. You're not allowed to know what that is until after. So I was speaking with one couple. Oli was 86 years old, and his wife, Helga, was 84. And he had survived cancer and was just getting back into his life as a farmer when he slipped in the bathtub, hit his head, and died. He said, I saw this light, I moved towards it, and there was so much love and peace, and I felt finally I was home, and I understood. And I just wanted to stay, but I heard my wife calling to me. I heard her saying, Oli, don't leave me, come back. I didn't want to come back, he said. And it was sweet because his wife said, yeah, he never listens to me. But then he was back in his body, and he regained consciousness, weeping and weeping, because he left this realm of love. He never forgot it. People who have a glimpse of the other side never forget it. It's always life-changing. but they also don't feel comfortable speaking of it because they're worried. They think I'm crazy. Nobody else goes through this. It's such a profound and personal experience, but they're not able to express it without becoming very emotional. So that triggers their defense mechanism not to become upset. They suppress it. But they hold it inside. It's a sacred place. I spoke with another family. I was with them as their loved one died of cancer. And we connected around his bed, and they removed life support. And while I said a prayer, the real connection just came through sending him love and gratitude for his life. And his wife and his son and his grandmother were there. And when he passed, of course, grief gripped everyone, and we wept. But his son, who was 14, looked at his mom, and he just began to smile as he cried. And he said, "Mom, I see him right beside you." It's so beautiful. Dr. Raymond Moody is the author of a very popular book written about 20 years ago, Life After Life. And it's stories of near-death experiences what people glimpse. He's just released another one called Glimpses of Eternity. And this is stories of loved ones who are in the presence of those who die and get a glimpse of what they experience and then come back. It's all consistent. It doesn't matter what your culture is or your belief is. It's all consistent. That love is waiting for us, and beauty and life. That this stage of existence is like being in the egg. And death is like hatching. And our soul continues on a journey that perhaps goes into eternity. A journey of continued growth and learning and awareness and fundamentally of relationship. So it's the mystery we're all headed for, and something we sense, but we aren't able to touch while we're here. And out of this mystery, the religions form. It's difficult to get our heads around the concept that you are not a body. You have a body. You are a soul, having a physical experience. It's a common medical response to a mystical experience, that you're not going through a tunnel towards God's light. Your brain is shutting down, and this is the random firing of neurons. And psychologically, it's like a short-circuit defense mechanism to help you with the experience. One of the limitations of the scientific method is that it demands repetition in order to verify proof. You can't repeat death. So it's that frontier that presents a great challenge. So the question comes to something more fundamental, not just near-death experiences, but is there something more to us than the physical? Is thought and feeling, is existence and being and consciousness a form of energy that is not limited by the physical form of the body? And the common response of science is, of course, no, you are flesh and blood, and that's the end of it. However, that reflects an ignorance of the latest scientific data. There is a massive amount of new information and studies that demonstrate that you do not stop at your body, that thought and feeling and love ripple out from you as a form of energy. There is a collective consciousness. And the studies on that can be repeated and verified. An example, the Gaia Mind experiment began over 20 years ago. Princeton University set up 66 random number generators throughout the planet. These are small devices that simply generate a 1 or a 0 randomly. And they're placed all over the earth, in cities, jungles, mountains, forests, underwater. And they're not connected to each other. They are linked into the computer at Princeton University, but they're not linked into the internet. The theory was, if there is such a thing as global consciousness, then if something dramatic happens in the world, it should affect the chaotic field, and these random number generators would register that. So the experiment was set up for the World Day of Prayer. Millions of people prayed for peace at 5:30 in the evening Greenwich time. What do you know? There was a statistically, though small, synchronizing of these random number generators. So they let them run, and they monitored it. Then Princess Diana died, and there was a very significant synchronizing of these random number generators as the ripples of grief went around the world. And then 9/11 happened. You can go onto the website. You can just Google Guy Mind Experiment, Princeton University. I believe that the actual site is called Noosphere, NOOSPHERE.com. And you can watch each one of these random number generators as they pulse. And you can pull up any historical event that has happened since the beginning of the experiment and see the graphs and the analysis. 9/11, these generators started to synchronize 3 minutes before the planes hit the towers and continued for 3 days afterwards. A massive synchronizing that is so at variance to what you would expect. Then there's thousands of individual studies that show thought and feeling have a power. And your heart is more sensitive than any instrument in detecting the power of presence and connecting to another person. It's so difficult to trust your heart when it is also filled with grief and anxiety and fear. One of the paradoxes that we live with is that if the afterlife is truly there, and our journey there is one of continued evolutionary development as spiritual beings towards the very heart of God, then death is a requirement. Death is required in order to take that next step. What then is required to ensure that you get to the other side? Well, all the religions have their doctrines of purity, of their theologies of forgiveness and absolution and salvation. Fundamentally, in this vast universe, love would be the main requirement. For you to be able to love and to experience or acknowledge in some way that God loves you. And despite all the suffering, you are held in this love. That may be all that there is needed. In the scale of things, and our tiny, insignificant, and brief lives here, in a cosmos this big, I tend to put my money on the grace and compassion of God, much more than I would put the money on my own understanding, my own theology, or religious beliefs. Because in the face of that vastness, the poverty of my understanding and my words is probably not enough. But if the nature of God is love, then everything required will be done to get you through. That is what is meant by faith giving you strength. And that is what makes it possible for death to be a safe experience, because you experience love. The job of the medical staff is to make that death never come too soon, right? To keep it at bay. But when it comes, to keep you as comfortable as possible, but also to keep you as connected as possible, and aware to the extent that you want to be aware. Then you are able to experience the love. And perhaps the greatest challenge that we're not at all able to do is to face that final step with our eyes open and with our heart open and experiencing what could be the greatest transformation that possibly be something that's safe? Only love could do that. For those of us left behind, grief is the price we pay for love. And it's going to hurt. The more real the love is, the deeper it is, the harder the pain will be. And there's no formula for how long that will last. Feeling our grief is part of being fully human and fully connected and fully alive, fully authentic. Because at the end of our journey, the point is not, I would argue, to be good. The point is to be real. And that also means being real in our brokenness and our grief, being authentic. And in those hard places, not to become hard, closed, and filled with anger, but instead to be filled with love, connection, and awareness. There's no greater spiritual victory than that. And in terms of that hope and that faith, millions of people, far more intelligent than me, have had that hope and faith. I'll lean on their wisdom instead of just trusting my own when my spirit is down, when my heart is broken, when my life has been emptied of the very person that I've cherished and loved the most. Doesn't mean you can't get angry at God. I always encourage people to get angry at God. So you've eloquently expressed that fundamental big question again. Why do bad things happen to good people? Because love requires freedom. And freedom opens up everything. And bad things will end up happening to good people. Every step of the way, we have a choice to love. Every step of the way, we are supported by a love that believes in us so much as to grant us this opportunity of freedom, growth, and development, but will not abandon. That's the heart of every healthy religion. My favorite story is the story of the prodigal son.
Yes.
You got this kid who's got it good. It's great at home. And he's got the nerve, because he wants to go do his own stuff, to go to dad and say, give me my share of the inheritance now, because I want to live a good life, and I got my own plans, and I don't want to do this. I don't want to live here. I want to do my own thing. I wouldn't say yes, but in the story, the dad says yes, and the kid takes off. I love the big brother in this story. Big brother gets really resentful at the dad because he says, why are you doing this? I've always been here. I've always done what you needed. And you want that brat to go off and you give him permission to just live the wild life. And I'm sure his dad's saying, yeah, you just wait. It's okay. Meanwhile, the son goes off and, well, you know the story. Spends it all, lives the high life, ends up with nothing, ends up working on a farm and eating food that the pigs would eat. And it's cool because the kid decides, I had it better off at home, so he devises the plan. I'll just go to dad and I'll tell him the story, and dad will take me back, and then I'll have it good again. He's not doing it out of love, he's doing it out of survival and self-interest. And even while he's far away and the dad sees him, he says to everyone, throw a big party, my son is back, which really pisses off his bigger brother. And the dad says to the big brother, it's all about the love. It ain't about fairness. None of this is fair. Love isn't fair. Love is love. You should be happy your brother's back. Not because he deserves it, but because you love him. I love that story. It's a beautiful story of us. And with all the mistakes and mess-ups that we do, it says love is greater. Nobody leaves this world neat and tidy. I've never seen a life that doesn't have frayed ends. And you just got to be okay with the mess, the unfinished business. cancer isn't going to clean up your act. It's not going to give you wisdom. It's not going to make you enlightened. It's going to push and shove and drag you towards being real and authentic with all of your brokenness, all the mess. And if you can do that with compassion, you will get through it, whatever the outcome. It's a story of a master who's dying in his ashram, and his disciples are coming to him. He's dying of cancer. And he looks at them and he says, "Have you come to see how a master, an enlightened one, dies? I'll show you how he dies." "I don't want to go, I don't want to go." Kicking and screaming. You know, be real. Don't hide. Don't give up hope. And love. I may be presumptuous, but every atheist I've met, and they tend to tell me that they are an atheist, which I love. I just want authenticity. Every atheist I've met has, in my conclusion, not rejected God, but rejected every concept or image of God that has been presented. None of them have been adequate to address their questions or their hunger. Whenever I walk into a room with a patient, I introduce myself. "I'm Dave, I'm the chaplain. How you doing?" They get nervous. Because if the chaplain walks into a room and you've got a cancer, what do you think?
It's over.
It's over. He's come to check my ticket and see which way I'm going. And so one of the first statements back I get is, "Oh, I'm really not that religious. I haven't been to church in a very long time." And I pull up a chair and I sit down because I'm very tall. I want to get down to their level. I don't want to tower above them. Looks like the Grim Reaper. So I sit down and I come in close. Body language is what speaks. And I just ask, "That's okay. It's not about that. How you doing? How you doing?" And that opens it. It's how you ask the question. So if you're with a loved one, or if you're trying to find, well, I'll put it this way, if you're trying to find the peace of God, be the peace of God. If you're looking for the presence of the Spirit, be the presence of the Spirit. Show up with everything that's here. Pull up a chair, sit, and encounter it. So I want to point out that the depth of your emotional pain as you talk about this speaks to the very high level of wisdom you actually possess on the issue. Because if you were not sensitive to the injury and aware of it, you wouldn't feel what you're feeling right now. That level of consciousness is required for compassion to have power. Now, how to move with it instead of let it grip you and hold you all of your life and become a deep pain that is no longer able to be clearly identified because it's been there so long. The first way you do that is to name it.
Yeah.
Name the emotion, name the injury, name the grief. As you speak it, it takes a new energy. You've shifted the energy from one that is contained within you to one that is expressed through you. Now your relationship, as you speak of it, your relationship to your pain will change. So naming accurately, many people are not able to do that with emotional pain. Men usually are not able to do that.
Yeah.
So just like we did before, start with the body. I'm sad, I'm upset. Why? Why? Listen to the body. What do I feel? Where do I feel it in my body? Where am I holding it? Is it here? Strangling? Is it here? Taking my breath away, constricting? Is it here? Is it aching in my back? Throbbing in my head? Listen to the body, it'll tell you. Step 2, breathe into it. Don't stop it. Don't suppress it. Don't fix yourself. Don't feel better. Breathe into it. Feel it in the body. Listen. Step 3, name it. Speak it. Get together with someone else and say, this is what I feel. This is what I'm wrestling with. Ask them not to interrupt you. Ask them not to fix you, but to be silent and a witness. Just listen. So talk. And trust that as you talk, you will process something. Step 4. Finally, at the end, ask the person to reflect back to you what you're feeling. If they're able to accurately name it without mixing their own feelings on it, then you will see yourself. This is what Derek Walcott means by you will arrive with the stranger who is yourself, peeling the image from the mirror.
Yeah.
It's hard to find someone who will not, in their anxiety, try to move away from your pain or try to fix it with their words. So you have to give them instructions. I need to talk with someone about this. Please don't interrupt or tell me anything. Just listen until I tell you I'm done. That's great. Another tool you can use is silence. And you're going to hate this homework. I'm going to give it to you anyway. The homework is this. Go home and sit with someone you trust and you love and ask them, well, set the timer on the microwave for 3 minutes and sit with that person and hold their hands and look into each other's eyes and say nothing. You will be using the other person as an amplifier and a mirror, and you will encounter all of your material. It will all bubble up in here. And the instinct is to look away, to laugh in nervousness, to cry, listen to whatever, but let it all bubble and boil. At the 2-minute mark, it's all going to shift. It's going to be this deep connection. And you will find yourself. Most of the communication that we have is nonverbal. Like 70 to 80% is through our body. About 10% is through the sound of our words, and about 5% is through the meaning of our words. You reflect on any conversation, you probably don't remember the content, but you remember the quality of the presence. You are not defined by the energy in the room.
Yes,
You are not defined
exactly.
by other people's emotions and agenda. You are responsible for your presence and your energy. And so you can walk into a room that is filled with pain and chaos or anger, frustration, and you can be centered, clear, without needing to fix it or change it. And by the quality of your presence, you will shift how other people are present with themselves. I do not claim to be a master in this. I am sporadic and clumsy and I stumble along. But when I remember this, at least my day is better.
Yes.
And I find others are too. I want to close with a poem. I've read it so many times and I've spoken of it, but I have it poorly memorized. It's by Derek Walcott, and it's called Love After Love. And it goes something like this. The day will come when, with elation, you will sit down with your own self and you will say, come, eat. Feast on the person that you have denied all your life. Take wine, take bread, peel the image from the mirror, open the empty love notes never answered. Come and sit and encounter yourself. Come and feast on your life. If you look it up, it's going to be a little bit different. But the heart of it is there. If the one person you could ever completely compassionately show up with is yourself, that really is the most important encounter you could possibly make. And at the end of our life, cancer is a teacher. Lance Armstrong tells us it is a gift wrapped in barbed wire. And what's waiting in that gift is you. But you don't have any wire cutters. You're going to pry it open. And you will become bloodied and injured. And it's worth it. Because it's beautiful. So in your journey, may you encounter yourself, find love, strength, hope,